Hello. Happy 3-week birthday to Slay the Spire. I've been playing the beta branch for the early access version of this game for 1 week now. I've been having a ton of fun. I thought it would make sense to summarize how the week has gone. It's like every 2 weeks there's a big patch, I think. Unless there's a big patch dropping tonight, which I don't know about yet. And so I figured like 1 week in, I could say like how it's going, and then after 2 weeks, there will be the new patch, so I can like summarize how it went and then talk about what's new. Kind of do a 1 week kind of like updates thing. Seemed like the way to do it to me. I don't know. Let me know how it works for you and what you'd like to see in a video like this. Because instead of trying to say like there is one thing that I need to talk about, I'm saying like there are lots of things and I'm going to collect them all at the same time. And I don't think a video like this goes like quite as viral or anything, but like that's fine. That's not really my number one priority in making content. So cool. Still experimenting a lot on the beta branch. I have lost a lot of runs trying to adjust to the new card pool. There were some pretty major changes, which I'll talk about moving forward, but just like looking at my run histories, these were my first, 9 runs on the beta branch. I won 1 of them. I lost to the Act 3 bosses 4 times. And then like I got a little bit better. I feel like right now, all right, I am very much still like experimenting with stuff, trying things out. If something is bad and I think it's bad, I will often click on it to try to see if I can work out how to make it good. Or I might think like, oh, maybe it would be good in this situation. Then I click on it and I'm like, no, it was bad again. But I'm still very much experimenting. I'm like, I have so much learning to do in this game. So like winning like half-ish of the time at max difficulty feels very generous to me. Like I would not mind it if I was winning far less than that. I think that me winning half the time at max difficulty after only 3 weeks of play implies that, you know, in several months, once people have like gotten all their strategies worked out and made all their videos and guides and everything, that lots of players could be winning substantially more than half of their runs at max difficulty in this game, which is, to me, that suggests that the game a bit more difficulty still. But also, I think that difficulty will probably ramp in the early access process. Like, probably there will be more Ascension levels, or the Architect will get released and there'll be another boss fight or whatever. So that doesn't necessarily mean that Ascension 10 needs to be harder than it is. It might just be like, as players work it out, kind of alongside the devs are adding the final challenges and the final boss and everything, that kind of thing. I don't know. I do not know, though. I don't think there is a roadmap, so yeah. We'll see what happens, right? Anyway, I feel like I've locked in pretty well on Silent. I have won my last 6 Silent runs, so if you take Silence results out of here, I'm doing terribly, is one thing that means. Kind of interesting. The other characters I'm still very much working out, experimenting with. With Silent, I've found a coherent thing where like I can consistently solve Act 1 in a way which transitions into consistently solving Act 2 and 3, and I haven't found anything that is quite that consistent on any of the other characters. I'm still very much working it all out. My preference would be for Silent to have some balance changes so that you couldn't do that anymore, for what it's worth. Like, I don't think it's healthy for people to be able to just win every time on a character doing the same thing over and over again. And I'm definitely not winning every time. Like, winning 6 times in a row doesn't mean I win every time. Don't, like, get me wrong here. But I'm winning. It's not just that I'm winning quite often, it's that all of my wins are very similar to each other. And that's kind of a big concern to me. We can talk a bit more about that later. I have been kind of focusing more on the ancient bonuses and working out how they all work. If you want this spreadsheet, by the way, it's linked below the video. It's also !Spire2 on my Twitch channel, so you can get it and through it and everything. I am building it out of parsing JSON and modding the game, and that's all stuff that I'm working on like pretty hard off stream, and not currently like trying to publish, because having a public dev project is substantially more work, I think, than having a hobby project that I'm doing on my own. So yeah, anyway, I've been paying more attention to ancients and stuff like that. One of the things here This ELO rating is like a slightly more creative way of reporting the pick rate, basically. And then this is pick rate, and this is win rate, and then again, pick rate, win rate on Ironclad, pick rate, win rate on Silent, etc. is how to read this data. Something I've been trying to do in the last week is I've been trying to take the options that I haven't taken very much a bit more to see how they do. Because like I had my first initial impressions, which were like, this thing seems really strong, this seems really strong. And especially at Niao, like you see the things you think are strong so often that if you just keep taking them, like you might not take any of the other ones at all. Like all of these have sub 25% pick rate for me. So I'm trying to do a better job of exploring these. I took the Nutritious Oyster event, which gives you 11 max HP yesterday, and very easily won the run and kind of liked it. Like 11 max HP from the whale was not bad at all. So, you know, I'm just trying to do stuff like that. I've been taking the large capsule quite a lot, and I still haven't actually decided if I like it, but it's very interesting. That's the one that gives you an extra strike and defend and gives you 2 relics. Some of the changes on the beta branch in particular made me feel like the downside of that was a lot lesser, and I was curious to see what I could get out of the upside, because 2 relics is like very wide space. There are lots of different things that 2 relics could be, so I've been having trouble, having fun with that. In particular for the ancient events though, I've been kind of like getting a sense for which of the Act 2 and 3 ancient bonuses seem like they are strong in an outsized way, and then trying to make sure that I have a deck which is set up to take advantage of them. So as an example, I've been trying to make sure that I have a card that is worth cloning in case I get the event which lets me enchant a card with clone. And that can mean things like taking a different card in a card reward where there are 2 that are close but one of them happens to be really good to clone. It could also mean something like not enchanting a card that was really good to clone, and instead enchanting a different card, because the clone is an enchant and you can only enchant each card once. So stuff like that. I'm just kind of learning that kind of stuff, getting a sense for it all. I feel like there are very few of the Act 2 and 3 ancient events that don't feel at least a little bit interesting to me. I have taken almost all of them at least once, and I can't think of many situations where I've really not enjoyed it. Okay, the Seal of Gold event, where it steals 5 gold from you every turn to give you 1 energy. I didn't know that that would stop giving you an energy once you had 0 gold. That was unenjoyable. But yeah, whatever. Now I know, and I don't know. There are probably situations where I would take that, but I feel like they're very limited, perhaps. So, you know, I mean, learning more about the ancient bonuses, there are almost 100. I feel like it would be cool if there were like 3 times that many, because the ancient bonuses are one of my favorite parts of the entire game right now. It's so cool to have just, you have your deck at the end of the act, and then you start the next act and get something that's like massively run warping in a creative way, and all of a sudden you get to like engage your muscles again in a new way to a new sort of set of resources that you didn't have before. Did a very good job of making some very fun ancient rewards, which are just a lot cooler than like having 1 more energy every time, like you might have in Slay the Spire 1, or getting Runic Pyramid every time it's offered to you, which, like, I like playing with Runic Pyramid, don't get me wrong. I would not have played as many hours of Slay the Spire 1 if I didn't like playing with Runic Pyramid, but it is nice to not get offered it as many times. Yeah, that seems preferable to me. Okay, cool. And then I'm starting to get a decent feel for Act 1 bosses, HP cost of different floors, etc. So this is going to be intimidating, but this is a graph I made which shows how much average percentage of max HP I am losing in weak hallways, normal hallways, elite fights, and bosses on every floor in the game, which is a lot of information, and it's very messy. It's made messier by the fact that I have limited data on all of these floors. I think also I'm interpolating. Like, some of these floors are forced treasure chests, but there's a line through them anyway. Maybe I shouldn't be doing that. I don't know. It probably looked even messier when I didn't do that. Regardless, some things that I have noticed, which are interesting to me, is Ironclad has been taking so much damage from early elites if I'm trying to force myself into an early elite on Ironclad specifically. So probably I'm gonna stop taking early elites quite as hard on Ironclad, and I suspect I'll win a bit more if I do that. Regent has also taken. Oh, that's Necrominder actually. I thought that was Regent. How is Regent doing against Act 1 elites then? Regent's crushing early elites. Regent. Damn. Okay. Some of this is like carriage versus horse sort of stuff, or like if I think that early elites are hard, I might only go to them if I have a really good potion on a character. So like maybe I think early elites are very hard on Regent, obviously, and so I just don't take them unless I get a super strong potion for an elite fight, that kind of thing. You know, it's not like this is telling any particular truth about the game as a whole. It's just telling you a truth about how I have been playing the game so far, which is useful to look at for me in particular, but might not be useful on like a more global level for like working out how it works for everybody or for you or for other people or how it will work for me in the future, so on and so forth. I don't know. It's kind of like straightforward to see that like a lot of the lines start kind of higher and then go downward because as you go through the act, you get better at the fights, right? Which makes a lot of sense. And so, you know, like try to take the fights later in the act to take less damage from them. This seems none of this is groundbreaking stuff, but it's kind of fun to see how true that is. This up here is because sometimes you get a like map that makes it so you have 2 more floors in Act 2, and so the boss fight is sometimes on a floor 2 floors later, and so I had to do really weird handling for that, and then I have like one instance of one boss fight that Silent Fort fought at the end of Act 2, which was on floor 18, and she happened to take 60 damage in that one time, so that's not a very useful data point. A lot of this is just kind of still noise. You can see how much the lines are jumping up and down when, like, logically they should be pretty smoothly going downward, so you can see the noise in this. I also, like, have now got information about how much damage the boss fights deal to me, which is nice. So this is as a percentage of max HP. We can also look at encounters here, I guess, and see a flat amounts. It's like I'm, on average, taking somewhere between 15 and 30 damage from most of the bosses at the end of Act 1, which is fine. I feel like I often end up at the end of Act 1 with like 20 health, and so I have an interesting decision between resting and upgrading, which depends on which potions I have and what my deck is and stuff like that. I feel like the bosses are in a pretty healthy state. Yeah, so I've just been kind of working that stuff out, because I was dying a lot to the Act 1 boss where, like, I've just been trying to work out where the limits are there, basically. And I'm starting to get a much better sense for that now, I feel like. I have not been dying to the Act 1 boss anywhere near as often. The door! The door maker is reworked on the beta branch, and it's been massive, contentious conversation point on the internet. People always want to know my opinion about the door maker, stuff like that. I think it's fun. I have been enjoying it quite a lot. It is currently my pick for the best enemy ever made in a deck builder that I have played. So, I like said that on the internet, and then people were like, oh, he's being hyperbolic, or he's wrong, or this is only for him and not for us, or things like that. Like, no, I'm just like being honest. Like, I think it's really good. It's been extremely fun to play against the Doormaker. And I hope to, over time, help other people understand why this enemy is so cool. Like, it's really fascinating. In the comments on the video I made about the Doormaker, like, half of the comments are like, yeah, this was really cool. I had one run where I did this and this and this and this and this, and it was so satisfying to get the win. And then half of the comments are like, this only applies to the top 1% of players. You're like, you're being unreasonable. Like, I just want to play a run and win very easily without, like, the enemy using RNG to beat me and stuff like that. And, like, very different things that people want from the same game. Kind of a fascinating idea, right? I'll get more into that later, but I've been really enjoying the door a lot. My favorite 2 runs of the last week were both against the door. The first one I lost as defect. I walked into the door fight with a really strong power deck, which, like, I've had a couple of times that defect power synergies have done very well. Subroutine's a very strong card. It gives you an energy every time you play a power as a power itself, which if you pair that with some card draw and get like 2 copies of it, you can dump your entire deck very quickly and have just tons of powers in play. So I had that and Storm Plus and a Creative AI, and the door stole my Buffer Plus, so it was very hard for me to block all of a sudden. And then stole one of my subroutines, so it was very hard for me to get the rest of my powers into play. And then I drew my Bias Cog Plus, which I'd gotten from the Ancient reward, which had been completely nuking everyone, and which I thought would very easily deal 500 damage to the door, coupled with Storm Plus, etc. I drew it turn 1, so I couldn't play it the first turn of the fight. And then the second time I went through my deck, the door maker stole it, so I didn't get to play it at all. And then I lost with it, left at 50 HP. And that was really cool. It was really cool for two reasons. Number one, it made me consider, like, what sorts of things could I have done to make this deck win without the Bias Cog? Like, were there things I could have, like, was there a potion that would have gotten me there? Because I only missed by 50, right? Even with it stealing very strong cards. So my deck was very powerful, like very above the curve of the challenge of the game, and then the Doormaker hit its most powerful cards, and I still almost won. And it was cool to have a chance to take a deck that had been very powerful and see, like, how was it functioning without those core elements? Like, what could I have done to get over the final hurdle? The other reason is it just made me realize, like, I could have just taken Hologram. Like, Hologram's a common. Like, when I drew Bias Cog on turn 1 and couldn't play it because the focus down would have happened too quickly for me to win the fight, in my opinion. I think that's right. I'm not sure. Maybe I could have just played on turn 1. But when I did that, like, if I'd just had one hologram in my deck, I could have gotten it back and played it on, like, turn 3. Hologram doesn't draw the card, so the Doormaker would have had no way to eat it. And I just, like, prior to that run, had never considered doing that, and I was like, oh, that's kind of obvious counterplay, and it's in a common. Cool. So that was really fun. It's fun to, like, have unique mechanics which have different counterplay from stuff that I'm used to. And then the other very fun Doormaker fight I did win. That was this one, where I had, this is like the pretty normal silent formula that I've been using. Like, poison is enough for every enemy in Act 1, pretty much. And then you want to transition into, like, card draw for late game often to get your scaling powers and everything played as quickly as possible. And Speedster is a power that lets you kill Act 2 when you use card draws. So I've been taking a lot of copies of Speedster, and other ways to make card draw pay off. Sly cards are an obvious way to make card draw pay off, where Acro plays a free card. So lots of that if I don't get offered the Speedster, but sometimes just, like, one Speedster is already kind of enough. And then I also took a Corrosive Wave. Now, I wouldn't have taken a Corrosive Wave at all prior to the beta branch, because I already had a Speedster. So I was like, well, the card draw element of the deck is already doing enough. I'm going to beat the late game boss not with the card draw element, but with the scaling powers that the card draw lets me put in play. So the Speedster is enough to get through the, like, 3 Knights fight in Act 3 and the tempo fights in Act 2. And then I'll have scaling stuff for Act 3. But then I was like, wait a second, what about the door fight? Maybe there's, like, I can't rely on scaling powers quite as much. Maybe there's a way to, like, make it so the card draw element of the deck, because there are 3 different elements of the deck, right? There's the slow poison damage, the card draw element, and the scaling powers for late game. Maybe the card draw element of the deck could beat the door in case the scaling powers don't come together or the door eats them. So I took a Corrosive Wave, which was great. Corrosive Wave, very powerful, like, does even more than Speedster does in terms of making your card draw kill enemies. And then that was kind of like how I was planning to fight the door, but then I got up to the door fight, and I think I drew Corrosive Wave for the first time on turn 1, when the, like, actual door wasn't there yet, so I couldn't use it to apply all the poison, and it didn't go in play like Speedster would, so in my discard pile, whoops. And then the second time, again, the Doormaker ate it. So the constant here is that the Doormaker's eaten, like, the core card of my deck being able to beat it. And so then, all of a sudden, I had this deck where, like, core components are this slow poison damage, which was pretty good in Act 1, this faster damage associated with card draw, which is in Act 2, and then some scaling powers, like some defensive stuff. I think I might have had a Fasten, I don't know. Footwork, probably, something like that. And I realized that I had to stop playing Acrobatics. like I realized if I keep playing my card draw here, I'm spending a lot of energy on not that much output, scaling the enemy, and getting more of my cards stolen. What I actually ended up beating it with was going back to the cards that I had for the Act 1 boss fight, like Bouncing Flask and Leg Sweep, which were literally my transforms from the whale. That's what I got as the whale bonus, and using them to beat the door. So the door like took the late game cards out of my deck, and then I was able to like lean on some relics that I'd gotten with those cards over the course of the run in order to make my early game cards beat it. And that was really fun. Just very cool, dynamic ways that the deck functions over the course of the boss fight. I've been enjoying it so much. So, I've really been enjoying the door. I also think that, like, oh, if we come back here again one more time. 4 of these losses when I switched to the beta branch at the start were in the boss gauntlet, which is kind of wild. I got owned by the door quite a lot when I started playing the beta branch. And so I did a lot of like ground up rethinking of how I was building my decks, which was a lot of fun to be asked to do. I want enemies to ask me to think about how I build my decks to beat them. That's definitely a thing that I have fun adapting to. And I feel like the ground up rebuild has been really fun and pretty healthy. I feel like I'm taking skip a lot less, and I feel like I'm taking the cards that are like the second best version of the win condition for my deck a lot more often, which is cool as well. And sometimes I'm finding out they're actually better than the card that I thought was the best win condition for my deck, but it's no longer a situation where like I have one card that like wins the entire game. I don't have to take anymore. I can just like use that to win the game and like build support for it around, which is perhaps a satisfying way to build the deck, but it's not a very dynamic way to play runs of Slay the Spire. It's been really fun to have reasons to diversify and have different ways to win built into my deck and stuff like that. So I'm enjoying it a lot. For what it's worth, as I say that, these are, so ELO rating here, every time I'm in a card reward screen, there are 3 cards and a skip button competing against each other, or sometimes it's the relic skip button if you have the Pale's Wing, I think it is, that lets you skip 2 cards to get 1 relic. So I've been like kind of tracking ELO ratings in that system. So if I click on skip, then we say basically that it won a game of chess against all the 3 cards that it was playing against. So it beat Acrobatics and it beat Escape Plan and it beat Piercing Whale or something like that. And so because of that, its ELO goes up by some amount depending on what the ELO rating of the cards it beat was. And the same thing happens if I take a card. If I take Footwork, then like its ELO goes up and the other cards and the skip button have their ELOs go down. And you can see here that skip in Act 2 and Act 3 for all 5 characters is just like the option that I have been clicking more than anything else. So that's not necessarily wrong, but we are still skipping a lot. I am still skipping a lot. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm not meant to be skipping as much as I am, but I am skipping a lot. Also, I talked about how like the Door Maker exists. We are building the game to be anti-infinite quite heavily. We've taken a lot of the energy gain that's repeatable out of the game and everything like that. Acrobatics is still here, right? It's the only card so far that has gotten above skip for Act 2 or 3. Also, I'm skipping a lot as Regent still. I would like to skip less as Regent. Working on that. Trying to learn. Okay, anyway. Big Skulks. Couple of the elites were buffed in Act 1. The Skulking Colony and Burdonus. And the Skulking Colony was buffed in a way that feels kind of egregious. It's regularly hitting me for 30. Also, sometimes, like, one bad draw goes from it hitting me for 30 to me hitting me for 60 and I die. That has happened sometimes. You can only deal 15 damage to it every turn, and it has like 78 health. So the fastest you can possibly kill it is turn 6. That's not true, actually, but the fastest you can possibly kill it with normal means is turn 6. More on that later. At first, I was like, good grief, this enemy is overtuned, like, these numbers are not going to stay, wow. And then I played against it for a week, and, like, I kind of like it, to be honest. It is the hardest encounter in Act 1 for me, in the Underdogs at least, because Skulk and Colony is only in the Underdogs. But it kind of reminds me of how Gremlin Up felt against some decks in Slay the Spire 1, where like some decks were going to take 30 plus damage to Gremlin Up, and there wasn't that much you could do about it, and if you had to fight an elite, you just had to budget that health against it. And Gremlin Knob was such a big deal that it was like deck building warping. There were cards where it was like, you can take this card, but not until you've worked out how to beat Gremlin Knob. Do not put like a low impact skill in your deck before you've worked out a way to beat the Gremlin Knob fight for Act 1, because it will kill you. So it's been reminding me of that a little bit, and then it's made me like reconsider what I actually think like it means for the elites to be balanced. Like, do I actually want the elites to all deal the same amount of damage on average? Like, I kind of don't. Isn't it a bit more interesting if one of the elites is harder, and so you like, when you go into the elite fight, sometimes it's the really hard elite and you have to use all your potions and struggle for the rest of the act, and sometimes it's an elite which is harder than the hard hallway fights, sure, but like manageable? I don't know. I don't know, to be honest, but I've been really enjoying it, so all I can tell you is like what I'm experiencing and how it's like making me feel as a player, and it's been fun, is how it's making me feel. Also, we are talking so much on my channel about how Skulk and Colony is obscene, and every time we're in the Underdogs, we're talking about Skulk and Colony and everything, but I actually looked at the numbers for me for this week. Skulk and Colony and Birdonis both got buffed, and actually, like, Birdonis is hitting me about as hard as Skulk and Colony is. In fact, if you look all the way down here, Silent has been doing incredibly well against Skulk and Colony this week, and isn't actually taking that much damage at all. So Skulk and Colony, Skulk and Colony, Skulk and Colony, Skulk and Colony, Skulk and Colony. These are the Act 1 elites, Skulk and Colonies. This is the average damage I'm taking to them on that character. This is the average damage as a percentage of my max HP, which, like, I don't need to show that. I don't know. This is the average floor deviation percent, so compared to other fights on that on the floor where you fought it. Let's say, because let's say like I fought Skulk and Colony on floor 6 every time, like the number would be really high, but that's because I fought it on floor 6. So we're like adjusting based on where in the run I've actually been fighting it. Yeah, like Skulk and Colony has been really rough for Ironclad Regent and Defect, but like 25 to 40 average damage for an elite fight does not fall outside of the bounds of like, you can never win the run if this happens. And actually, a thing I didn't realize until I actually looked at the data, Birdonis has been hitting me like just as hard, if not harder, this week. I really didn't realize that until I set this data up to demonstrate the Skulk and Colony stuff and looked at what it was saying. So, also there was one fight against Bygone Effigy where I took a fight early as Ironclad and took a lot of damage, but also I think I had like Humidifier that run, which is the one which gives you 5 max HP every time you rest, and I had lots of campfires, and I was just like, well, I'm not going to die to any elite. I might as well fight an elite and rest afterwards. So like, it's worth noting, like sometimes taking a bunch of damage to an elite isn't actually like bad. Sometimes it's like, yeah, that's actually a thing that I planned for and was okay with having happen. So, Skulk and Colony's interesting. I'm not sure where I'm at about it. It can feel really rough if you have a character that deals damage with attacks, which is mostly Ironclad, and doesn't have the ability to decide when those attacks are played. It can be very rough if you draw the attacks on the turn where the Skulk and Colony has a big shield. And it doesn't feel like there's much you can do about that. Headbutt, I guess, is a thing you can kind of do. Headbutt's probably quite good against Skulk and Colony. Maybe I should take Headbutt more. I think Flame Barrier is probably a way to do decently against Skulk and Colony on Ironclad, and Feel No Pain, obviously, makes a bunch of block when you draw the dazes. That's probably pretty good in that fight. I haven't had the fortune of getting Feel No Pain yet into Skulk and Colony, I don't think. So yeah, like, That's been tough, but like it does feel like the other characters have ways to interact with his mechanics okay. So Regent has the ability to retain the blade, right? Which it's unfortunate that the blade can't deal more than 15 damage, because that's one of the things Regent's trying to do, is make a big blade and deal like 70 damage at once, and you can only deal 15 damage at a time here. But it does mean that on the turn where it has shield, if you have like a 20 damage blade, that potentially gets you 15 damage for the turn against that turn, which is the hardest turn to deal 15 damage on. So Regent does kind of have that, and Regent has the ability to put cards from discard pile on top of draw pile with a common, and ways to put cards from your hand on top of your draw pile as well, with a common and an uncommon. So it feels like Regent has play against it, actually. Defect has pretty good play against it with Orbs. I have definitely been taking a lot of damage with Defect, but like there are ways to beat it with Defect for sure. Necrobinder has Doom, which bypasses the 15 damage per turn thing. So I actually had a 0 damage Skulking Colony elite fight on Necrobinder this week, which I didn't think would happen at the start of the week, but then it happened, and I was like, whoa, okay, that was pretty easy. It also hits really hard. It gives you 8 dazes in your discard pile and hits really hard and can only take 15 damage per turn and has 78 HP. So that's like a lot of stuff. But yeah, I had a 0 damage fight where I think I like applied 28 Doom to it on turn 1, and then on turn 2 I drew another card to apply 28 Doom to it again and played it twice or something like that. Like I used a duplication potion and it was just dead. So it's possible. And then Silent, like Poison stacks up very well against Skulking Colony for Silent, so Silent seems like she has a pretty easy time with it. People are massively underestimating the things that Snakebite does for Silent's card pool, in my opinion. Skulking Colony fight, Snakebite's very good against. It's one of the harder fights in the game, right? And then Snakebite Plus does enough damage to beat all of the Act 1 bosses, which is a wild thing to put on a single common with Retain. Like, the other characters don't have a single common that they can play every time that beats the Act 1 bosses for them by itself, or at least provides enough damage to beat the Act 1 bosses before you get outscaled by itself. So yeah, Silent has some tools, and they're good tools which are useful elsewhere. So I don't know, I kind of like it. I wouldn't be that surprised if the numbers got tuned down a little bit, but it does not feel like having Skulking Colony in the game is making the game worse right now. And Burdonis, I didn't even realize it was hitting me that hard until I looked. But like, sure, like now that I've looked, I'm definitely going to be more cognizant of the fact that Burdonis exists and that I need to take cards which are good for that fight when I'm in the Overgrowth, which I'll have to work out what those are, I guess. It just kind of hits you every turn while getting stronger every turn, so it's an interesting kind of race fight. Yeah. Overall, having a ton of fun. Anti-infinites. So kind of like one of the major themes of the patch, the beta patch, was to nerf a bunch of the cards that let you go infinite. Just like, by that I mean playing like a card that gains energy, a card that draws cards, and just looping over and over again. Have a few cards that gain energy, a few cards that draw cards. Never let the enemy have a turn. That kind of idea. So those were creating a place. They had to be nerfed. Like 100% in my opinion, it was too much for the game. And I don't mean like at the highest level. I mean like it was too much for the game for someone who's like an intermediate player, probably. I was accidentally ending up infinite on 4 out of 5 of the characters toward the end of my runs very regularly. By accidentally, I mean like there was no point in the run where I deliberately tried to make the infinite happen. I just took good cards, and the result was that in Act 3, I was playing loops where the enemies didn't get any turns and none of the fights mattered. Like none of the enemy mechanics mattered anymore. They were all just dead. This was happening for me on Ironclad, Silent, Regent, and Necrobinder regularly without me trying for it to happen. And I don't think that that's just because like I'm some Slay the Spire savant or whatever. I think that's because the card pool made those cards too strong, and that if you hadn't run into it yet, or haven't run into it yet, like, unless you actively try to avoid it, you would run into it as you got better at the game in not that long. So I do think it's a good thing that Infinite's got nerfed a lot. Bit sad that Prepared got changed. I was able to use the new version of Prepare to good effect one time. It was okay, but also, like, my first silent loss was because I took Prepare in Act 1 to give it a go, and it was just so bad. So it's kind of like, Prepare's a weird card now. It like discards 2 cards and gives you 2 energy next turn. It feels kind of like an Act 3 card more than an Act 1 card, which is weird on a common, right? Commons are kind of like the thing you put in your deck in Act 1. Silent has a few commons, though, that do pretty well later on in the run. Anyway, because I'm no longer accidentally going infinite in late game, I'm having to work out how to build a strategy which coherently beats late game off of how it starts in early game, in a way that isn't just going infinite, which is a new challenge, and I'm enjoying it quite a lot. I'm not doing an incredible job of it on anybody other than Silent right now, I wouldn't say. Ironclad in particular, I have been struggling with. I feel like Ironclad does not have a very good matchup against Skulking Colony at all, and also Birdonis. Now that I know that that's the thing I meant to care about, it feels like Birdonis beats Ironclad pretty hard. And Bygone Effigy, I think I've fought one time on this patch, but it did deal me 61 damage the one time I fought it as Ironclad. So that's the like statue which hits you for 25 over and over again. That was largely because I fought it on floor 6 or something though. So anyway, yeah, I haven't managed to fight that many elites as Ironclad, which means that I'm getting behind and not having very many relics going into Act 2. And Ironclad has always been a character where, like, there are some massively standout cards, but a lot of the cards are, like, deal some damage, but nothing else. Or block a bit, but not very much else. Which leads to a situation where it can be quite hard to both deal damage and block at the same time. Ironclad has very few cards that are like Noxious Fumes for Silent or something, where you like play it and now you're dealing damage for the rest of the fight. You don't even have to think about that. You are dealing damage for the rest of the fight. Ironclad doesn't have that much. Ironclad, in order to scale up damage over the course of the fight, sometimes needs to commit quite a few cards in order for that to happen. Like something like putting 10 vulnerable on an enemy and then gaining strength from that vulnerable with, I don't remember the card that gains strength for how much vulnerable the enemy has. That would be a way to scale up Ironclad so you're dealing more damage later on in the fight. And I don't know if that's good. I've had trouble making like packages of cards which require that many cards in order to get an effect. I've been having trouble making those fit into a deck which only draws 5 cards per turn and has to block incoming damage most turns, if not all turns. So that's been tricky for me on Ironclad. There are some cards which are very, very good in an outsized way. Ashen Strike and Flame Barrier, which was not a card I was expecting to mention, are two, where it's felt like Ashen Strike, like, it gains more damage just by you playing your deck, so you don't have to think super hard about dealing damage every turn. You just have to like play your deck, play your Burning Pact, play your like rare that exhausts, play your True Grit to block, and all of a sudden you draw Ashen Strike and it's already 15 damage for 1. Next time you draw is 30 damage for 1 kind of thing. And it can scale up faster than that too. So yeah, there's that. And then Flame Barrier, like, I have been stunned by how good Flame Barrier is. Take a Flame Barrier, upgrade it, and like, it does so much damage in so many fights, which are challenging, and also blocks for enough. It's like the best possible version of Dash in this game, kinda. If you look at Ironclad cards, Stone Armor Plus, I got offered this 7 times when I was climbing the low ascensions and haven't been offered it since, so it still has 100% pick rate. It's very funny to me. But Feel No Pain Plus and then Ashen Strike is like the 3rd highest priority, kinda, Ironclad card in Ironclad's card pool for me so far, which is kind of fascinating. If we look here, there aren't many cards which only deal damage at the top of these charts. Where's the first card which only deals damage other than Ashen Strike? Not Pummel Strike, because that also draws cards. Fetch also draws cards. Claw. That makes sense. Claw does well because I took it a lot in my climb, and also because once you take one, you want to take more, right? So Claw has like a pretty high like second pick, third pick, fourth pick elo, where a lot of cards actually get worse when you have more of them in your deck already. Like Piercing Whale, for example, I take the first one very highly, but then I actually take the fourth one not super commonly at all, kind of idea. So yeah, Ashen Strike has felt outsized, Flame Barriers felt very good. Silent has been taking fewer like card draw kinds of things, less sly stuff, and more poison, and that's because Doormaker exists. So the way I've been playing Silent is Act 1, like slow kind of poison cards and some block, pretty much beats everything in the game. A little bit of AoE, a little bit of like a damage attack common kind of thing for the elite fights where poison cards don't work very well, but poison cards honestly work pretty well in most of the elite fights. Lots of snake bites. It's common with retain that applies poison, and it's very, very strong in the game. So people memeing about snake bite being a terrible card, I have found it to be incredibly good. Not like overpowered rare good, but like very, very solid common, which is doing a very powerful thing for me. Now I want to say, like, I say I'm taking fewer acros, but acro is here, right? Like, it's not like I'm not taking lots of them. I'm just slightly less reliant on that to be the only way that I win, which is good. That's good. I would be sad if acrobatics was nerfed, like the numbers on the actual card were changed, but I also would be somewhat understanding of it having happened. Draw 3, like it's Ancestral Recall with upside as a common, right? Discarding a card is upside because it lets you play a sly card or whatever. It's a pretty good card. Anyway, as for Silence, Silence kind of the only character that I do feel like I'm doing pretty well on. Defects building pretty enjoyable piles of cards. Power pile, where you just take lots of powers. Claw pile, where you take lots of zero cost kind of synergies with an all for one. Orb scaling stuff, where you take everything that channels orbs. There's, what's it called? Voltaic. Voltaic's the rare that channels a lightning orb for every lightning orb you've played so far in the fight. That rare is so powerful if you can get the deck it works in, but the characters all have 25 rares now, which is more rares than they had in Slay the Spire 1, and it can get stolen by the door, and kind of feels like you need to have quite a few cards in your deck total, so like you don't necessarily like draw it on early turns. I thought it would be a bigger deal than it was. Like, I picked it one time, very easily won the runoff. It was like, oh, good grief, this is going to, like, warp the character so badly. But then it turns out you just don't actually get offered it that often. And when you do, you're not necessarily in a place where you can use it. So that's interesting. I don't know. I've been enjoying Defect quite a lot. Happiest Defect card at the moment is probably Shadow Shield, which just blocks for 11 and channels a Dark Orb for 2. Great to be able to turn your energy into both block and scaling damage. That's just kind of good in almost every fight in the game. So very happy with Shadow Shield. I even got to make it play innately for free in one of my runs, and it was very strong there. I ended up losing that run just barely in the boss gauntlet, but like it did so much to take a deck that wasn't that strong all the way to the boss gauntlet. Pretty happy with Shadow Shield at the moment. Regent is fascinating. Regent feels like you're piloting a Rube Goldberg machine a lot of the time. Like, you have to play Venerate in order to have the stars, to play your star-consuming card, which vulnerables the enemy later, and when you do that, you'll use the Blade, which you've been building up and retaining, in order to deal an extra 50% damage because the enemy's now vulnerable, and then the enemy will die. And it's like, there's this, like, this 5-turn plan, we'll say, that Regent has to navigate through in order to win like a hallway fight. It's just like a lot of work to make the decks work. Glow got nerfed heavily as did, I do not remember its name, but there's the card that spends stars in order to make energy. And it used to be that you could just play Glow, which made stars and drew you cards, and Alignment is its name. You could play Alignment to spend the stars you were making to gain energy, which then let you play more Glows, and this was the way the region kind of accidentally went infinite in a lot of runs. But both Glow and Alignment were nerfed, or at least Glow was changed. I think I'd say it was nerfed. It no longer draws 2 cards on the turn you play it, it now draws 1 card on the turn you play it, and 1 card the next turn. Yeah, I'm okay with the changes. I like playing the character. I have been struggling a lot. There are some starts in Act 1 which feel like they are viable and consistent, but you don't get them every time. But like a really good Forge card solves a lot of Region's problems in Act 1, for example. Forge as a mechanic is a little bit clunky and stuff, but I have definitely found that like the common that forges 17 when you upgrade it, like once you have a blade that strong, you can like get through an awful lot of fights off of it. And you know, you get to take out their cards too, so it doesn't have to only be that card. That's just an example of like a common that leads into something that I feel wins pretty consistently. But a good number of Regent starts do feel like they are pretty deck order dependent, where like some cards aren't good until you have the other cards played. So if you shuffle them on top of the cards you need to play first for them to be good, all of a sudden you have a very bad fight. And I've been losing quite a bit with decks like that. And I can't tell how much of that is me needing more experience building those decks, which I definitely do. I'm not good at it yet. Versus like the decks actually are having a challenge because in Act 1 they need to be shuffled the right way to work particularly well, and you can't guarantee that. You don't really have a backup for yourself in Act 1. It's not like you like have sustain relics worked out to survive a bad fight. You might not have a potion belt with full potions yet because you had to use your potions for an elite or whatever. So you're very like scant on resources in Act 1. You have little available to you to mitigate something like a bad shuffle order if your deck is particularly vulnerable to a bad shuffle order. And I've been feeling that a little bit with Defect for sure. So still trying to work out Defect. I'm enjoying playing the character a lot. Also just trying to work out how do you then turn whatever you built in Act 1 into a deck which wins late game, which has not always been obvious to me. The strongest, most straightforward thing I found is using like the stars. So you can see the cards I have at the top here. This is only post beta patch Glow. It's already at row 46 in this sheet. That is not including the Glow before the patch, which I was taking like almost 100% of the time or something. So even post nerf Glow, I'm taking a lot. And yeah, like 2 block. Oh, Resonance is not the card I thought it was. Reflect is even higher. So this is 1 block card that uses stars, 2 block cards that use stars, a card which deals AoE damage whenever you use or generate stars, and a card which generates stars. And Resonance is up here, which I think is kind of weird. Why is Resonance so high up here? I don't really know. I think I just want Resonance to be good, but I'm not sure it is. It reduces enemy strength by 1 and gains you strength. Regent has some cool multi-strike stuff, which this synergizes with, and removing a strength from the enemies is like conceptually cool. I think that's why I take it a lot. I don't know if it's succeeding. 50% win rate? Man, it's not 0, that's for sure. Anyway, but yeah, other than that, I don't know. Been enjoying using Be Gone to get rid of the bad cards in my deck for longer boss fights, stuff like that. I don't know though. I'm definitely still working this character out. You can see a lot of Regent cards in here, like just barely above 1600, and that's probably because I've tried taking them like a couple of times and not have much success with them, and have not like solidified into a strategy where yeah, like I'm just taking those cards every time. Whereas if you look at silent cards, there are a bunch of silent cards that are way up here. If you look at this little sequence here, that's so many silent cards, right? Because I do know, like, oh yeah, those are the strong silent cards. I'm going to take those, and that's going to win me the run over and over and over again. So that's the difference between Regent and Silent at the moment, and kind of where I'm at with Regent. And then Necrobinder feels awkward. I had been doing a lot of Souls stuff with Necrobinder. that seemed like the strongest place for Necrobinder to be. I was having some success with it. I was still definitely working it out. And also, I didn't like it very much. I had, I think, 2 Necrobinder runs in a row where I had like deterministic infinite with Dirge and borrowed time, and misclicked 2 runs in a row to lose both runs. And having done that, I was not upset. I was like pretty happy that the run was over, because I was very bored of making souls and like slowly incrementing Osti's health so that I could hit the enemy with Unleash for 300 at the end of playing a cycle for 5 minutes and then doing it again next fight. So anyway, I had been doing a lot of souls. I do not mind that a lot of the souls stuff got nerfed at all. And also the enemies got changed to be a little bit stronger against it. And because of that happening, I've been trying to take more Doom cards early on, and I'm definitely still learning how Doom lines up against different things. There's the working out exactly what's good and what's bad to do, but also there are literal mechanical things I didn't know, like the Decimillipede revives when the last remaining thing is going to die to Doom. Like, if the last remaining piece of Decimillipede is going to die to Doom and the other 2 are going to revive this turn, the other 2 will both revive, and then the last remaining piece will die, but you'll still be fighting 2 pieces of Decimillipede. So Doom's pretty bad in that fight. Doom goes off after enemies escape. So, like, the thing that steals a card from your deck at the start of Act 2. I had a run where that stole my best block card. It was kind of my only block card, even. And I applied enough Doom to kill it. I was like piecing the fight with an understanding that I'd be able to, and then it just escaped with all the Doom that was lethal on it. And I was like, oh, well, guess I'm dead. And I was dead. You could see in like the hit points for the run that I was like pretty comfortable throughout the entire run. Then my best block card that I was leaning on very heavily got stolen, and my hit points just like went in a straight line down to 0 very quickly. So Necrobinder is being awkward. If you look at these, like, there are no Necrobinder cards up here. Like, there's no Necrobinder card, which I'm, like, consistently, happily taking. That's wild, right? To me, that is wild. So I don't know. I guess I'm still looking for where the core of Necrobinder's card pool is to lean on. Also, quite a few of our commons got changed, so they won't have enough data to ascend to the top of the chart yet, probably. Probably that's part of it. Because the chart's only show for any card that got changed in the beta patch, the card's only showing stuff since the beta patch, but for stuff that wasn't changed, it has the data from before the beta patch as well, still in there. Which is maybe the wrong way to do it. I don't know. That's how I'm doing it at the moment. Yeah, my own learning for the week. Worth briefly mentioning that I did a bunch of JSON parsing of run histories, as you've seen in the video. Lots and lots of info in this spreadsheet. You can see the spreadsheet I made. I'll link it below the video, and it's also !Spire2 on my Twitch channel if you want the link via that. But yeah, I've like done a lot of that and found some cool stuff. I don't know. It's fun. I'm enjoying myself. And I've been modding my game, so now I can hover over the enemies and see what the move trees are, which has been a big deal for me. If I were not streaming, I would be spending quite a lot of time like looking at a wiki, trying to work out what exactly the enemies did and what they could do next turn and stuff like that in order to get to a point where I was like comfortable navigating the fights perfectly. But because I'm streaming, like, I don't think you all need to see me sit there and work that out for like 5 minutes, so I just haven't really been doing that and been kind of like learning it via osmosis, just from like fighting the enemies enough, having a sense of what they might do. But yeah, now I can mouse over the enemies and actually see what their move tree is, which is very helpful. It has helped me a lot in understanding how I'm meant to map out fights, and you know, that helps. If you save 5 health by playing the fights better over the course of an act, that can easily be the difference between winning and losing. The Doormaker being so cool and so enjoyable for me to play against has led to me daydreaming quite a lot about how the other bosses could be cooler. I think a lot of the Act 1 and 2 bosses are still capable of increases of complexity if the devs wanted, but probably better to leave alone, I would guess, because you don't want to overburden players with too much complexity, right? Like, I have already in 3 weeks played this game more hours than, like, what's the right way to say this? If somebody purchased this game and played for 100 hours, they would like 100% get their money's worth. It costs like $25, right? So that's like 25 cents an hour. That's like 100% awesome. They would enjoy the game. They would play with the cards, see most of the cards in the game, that fight against all the enemies in the game. They might get some ascension levels or might just not. I don't know. They'd get to do some really cool combo goofy things from some fun ancient bonuses, and then they'd like move on with their life, do another game. That's perfect. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And that honestly seems like a sensible thing to target with the game design, is make sure that somebody can have that experience, because I think that's a very like normal experience of somebody playing a video game. They don't want to play for thousands of hours. They want it to be fun for a few weeks and then move on to the next thing, right? So I don't know if you want to make like the Act 1 bosses have extremely complex, unique mechanics and stuff like that. That's probably not super necessary. But I have kind of felt like the Act 3 bosses could be more unique and challenging, and I think that still fits within the idea of someone playing for 100 hours or something. Different people will have different opinions about this, of course. When I talk about how much I like the Doormaker, people are like, yeah, but I don't like it because it has RNG and I lose the run where I like built my deck with the best card, and I really wanted to like win that run, but it stole the best card, so I lost instead. And that makes sense for sure. I think maybe you could have the complexity of the boss mechanics like turn on at a certain ascension level, so like Ascension 0 it didn't happen. Maybe that would be a way to do it. I don't know. Maybe if you did that, then the Act 1 and 2 bosses could also have very complex, unique mechanics, and it just like you don't get to those until you've played for hundreds of hours, raising the ascension levels already or something like that. Anyway, the door being so cool has made me daydream a bit about other bosses and how they could be cool. And I was like thinking the Collector's Bind mechanic's pretty cool, but it's a little bit of a miss for me. So what if like the cards stayed bound? Yeah, so like the collector binds the first 3 cards you draw every turn, and then they only unbind if you play them, and you're only allowed to play 1 card per turn. So by the time you're going through your deck your second or third time, you're drawing cards which are already bound and have less stuff to do in your hand. I thought that'd be kind of cool, and then that also like makes the thing where you're fighting for summon plus her a little bit more interesting, because you could maybe unlock all of the cards when the summon died. So you have like a halfway point in the fight where you're like, oh my god, almost all my deck is bound. Now I can only play like 2 cards per turn. I need to get this thing done, and then I switch over to fighting her. My vibe is that that would make the fight more interesting and lean more into her unique mechanic, but like, I don't know. I don't really know. My goal here is not to influence the design of the game, really. My goal is to show you how much fun I'm having with different parts of the game, so that if there's a part of the game that you're not like exploring and having fun with yet, you could be like, oh, well, that seems like a pretty fun way to play. So I don't know. I'm not trying to make the collector super hard and punishing for you. Like, that's not my goal. I have been enjoying the Doormaker so much that it's gotten me thinking about how many other unique mechanics you could put into this game to challenge deck building, I guess, and how you could ramp up the Act 3 bosses who currently exist, is I guess why this slide is here. That's something I'm enjoying. I want the enemies to beat me. So there's that, and then thinking about Test Specimen, it's a really cool concept to have like the 3 different, it's basically 3 different elites from Slay the Spire 1. There's the Gremlin Knob, then the Book of Stabbing, and then the Nemesis, like an Act 1 elite, Act 2 elite, and Act 3 elite from Slay the Spire 1. That's a really cool concept. So I've been thinking like why not have all 9 or something? Why not have all 9 of the elites from Slay the Spire 1, and you kind of randomize which order it goes through them in? Maybe it always starts with an Act 1, and then it goes to Act 2, and then it goes to Act 3, or maybe it can actually, like, the hit points keep scaling as it gets to the later phases, but maybe, like, you could fight Gremlin Knob as Phase 3. That could be pretty wild. I think that would be really cool. One thing that I don't like about it right now is that you can use a phase which is easy for you to prepare for a phase which is hard for you in a way where, like, it's fully deterministic, like, you know what's happening. So, for example, if I use a big malaise as silent, to nerf the second phase where it's attacking me for 11 times turn number or whatever. It's not turn number, but it attacks one more time for 11 every turn. And it starts at 3 or whatever when it spawns. Well, then it's not threatening anymore, and so I can like spend some time setting up all of my scaling powers and everything to be able to easily beat phase 3. And that's a bit of an issue, but if the phases aren't deterministic, then the player no longer gets to navigate them deterministically, and I think that becomes much less of an issue. And I think there's also just room for more really cool things to happen at that point. Like, you could be in a situation where you're like, oh my god, I'm down to like my last 5 HP. I really need the final phase to be giant head here. Oh my god, it's giant head, we win. Like big swings and stuff. And then, you know, when you are preparing for a possibility instead of a certainty, there's just more excitement, reward, and room to play, I think. Because if there are 4 different possibilities, there are 4 different things you can prepare for, and you can make judgments about, like, I need to prepare for the Book of Stabbing here, that's the most threatening thing to me. If it ends up being the Gremlin Leader or something, my deck's actually really good against that anyway, so I don't need to worry about it. You can make those judgments and feel rewarded when your judgment ends up being correct, or feel challenged when your judgment ends up being incorrect, and you have some reason to keep on motoring on and getting better at the game. I also think potion usage is really cool in the boss fights when it's hard for you to evaluate exactly which boss fight is difficult for you and exactly which way. So I love that there's like a gauntlet of 2 bosses where you are keeping the potions throughout the entire gauntlet, because you have to decide, do I want this on boss 1 or boss 2? And if there's more variance in how the bosses function exactly, then that makes that decision harder to make and more rewarding to get right, is my idea. So that's a thing that I've been like daydreaming about. If that sounds awful to you, that's okay. You don't have to be me. You can like a different game. Or you can like this game but want it to be a different thing, or whatever. Which brings me to the final slide, which is I've been vaguely confused by social media this week in particular. The game got review bombed for the Doormaker and the nerfs to infinite cards, which I found very confusing. And a lot of people have been saying, okay, I made a video about the Doormaker and how much I liked the Doormaker, and I got a lot of responses to that video. So I've heard a lot of things. A lot of people have been saying, actually, we do like the Doormaker. It's just people from a certain part of the world who are review bombing, but most people aren't doing that. Your audience likes it. A lot of other people are saying the Doormaker is a terrible boss. It removes our agency. It feels really bad to build a deck and then have the boss steal your best card, and then you lose and feel like there's nothing you could have done about it, etc. I think it is valid to like state that that is how you feel, for what it's worth, like 100% sure. Cool. And then other people are like, the Doormaker is so cool. I had like a really cool run where I had to lean on this secondary card, which I had not used for the entire run up to that point because my best card got stolen, and the secondary card was able to win paired with a potion, and it was just so rewarding to like see all of that come together. Or like, I got my entire deck eaten by the Door Eater because I was using acrobatics, but then it died to poison at the end anyway, so I like just barely managed to win. Like, so there's like a massive range of responses to this boss, which is fascinating to me. Apparently Mark Rosewater has written blog articles about why like players don't like it. I don't know if he's written blog articles about why players do like it, because I'm also hearing that a lot of players do like it. There are people who say like only the top 1% of players are going to like this boss because for most people it's like too challenging, but then there are other people who are like, I'm just on like Ascension 4 and I had the coolest run I've ever played against the Doormaker. It's wild. It's like, there's so much stuff going on, and everybody has a valid experience, right? Like, the way you feel is the way you feel. Nobody can nobody can contradict that. That is true. My goal as a content creator is not to like make the game be the thing I want it to be at all. My goal as a content creator is to try to show you how fun the game is for me, and try to show you which things about it are so fun for me. So when I say stuff like, I do not want the game to have like a combo of 3 commons and an uncommon that you can play infinitely that are very easy to assemble in every run. I'm not, I mean, I guess I am sort of saying like, please nerf those cards and take them out of the game or whatever. But the main reason I'm saying that is because of how it contrasts with what is fun about the game. And I want to try to explain to you, like, it's really fun to have to do, like, adaptive dynamic deck building in order to face challenges as you go up the spire and fight against really tricky enemies and have to have a different plan for a different fight because, like, the thing you did in one fight doesn't work in another fight and stuff like that. That's just really enjoyable and has incredible replayability and feels very rewarding to succeed at and stuff like this. And you can do it. This isn't something that only the best players in the world can do. You can do stuff like that. Like, you can. So, that's like kind of where I'm trying to aim my content. And I don't know. I don't know how much I'm succeeding or not succeeding. Probably depends on you and whether you like me or not and how you interpret things I say and what your preconceptions coming into a video were and stuff like that. I don't know. People are still memeing about Snakebite, which is just very confusing to me. I don't know how many times I've mentioned Snakebite so far in this video, but I think Snakebite I would look at nerfing or removing from the game because of how strong it is, personally, right now. The thing about Snakebite is it's a common, so you can very reliably get an Act 1, and if you upgrade it, it does enough damage by itself to beat the Act 1 bosses, just about. And that's like a somewhat unhealthy thing to put in the game. Most characters do not have a single common which can do that. Did I already say that this video? Maybe. I don't know. I feel like every time I have Snakebite in my deck, it's in my hand a lot because it has Retain, and then people see it in my hand a lot, and they're like, why are you taking Snakebite? That card's terrible. Isn't Snakebite bad? It's not bad. It's like a pretty good common. If we look back here, Snakebite Plus, in particular, is like fairly high up here. It's in the top 100 cards. So because I have the unupgraded and upgraded cards, there will be like 800 total cards in this list or something. So this is like an 80th percentile plus card, this as an upgraded common for me so far. And that's only off me taking it, I think, 4 times out of 8 times it's been offered. But 3 of those times were in Act 1, and I have won 100% of the runs where I took it. And, like, I very much believe that that was because Snakebite Plus is a very good damage card. You can take an unupgraded one and upgrade it and have a Snakebite Plus as well if you want. So, I don't know. It's kind of fascinating to me. But yeah, I think my general point about all that is, like, I am not trying to say that the game shouldn't be the thing that's comfortable for you, and I think the devs in particular are very interested in making a game that is fun and enjoyable to a wide range of people. I think they've done a very good job of that already and will continue to do an even better job of it. I think the thing I'm trying to do, which can feel like kind of like threatening and elitist maybe if I communicate it poorly or if you interpret it in that way, is I'm trying to show you, like, above that thing where, like, you build your deck and win the run and feel good about winning and whatever. Above that thing, there is the ability for this game to challenge you and make you think about what to do every floor and adapt your strategy over the course of the run and, like, change and grow and lose again and lose again and break it all apart because you're unsatisfied with how things are working and start again from the bottom up to create an entirely different idea of how you're even playing Act 1 because Act 3 keeps being a problem. And you can do this for years. And it's so much fun. And I've been having so much fun doing that in Slay the Spire 1 for the last 8 years of my life. And I want to show you that Slay the Spire 2 can be that because I'd like you to get to enjoy it in those sorts of ways too, if you'd like. And I want to make sure that other people who want to get to enjoy it in those sort of ways are getting the game that lets them do that. And I'm completely fine if, like, Ascension 0 doesn't have any of that and the boss mechanics turn on at Ascension 10 or something like that. I think that's fine. Maybe the devs will do something like that. Enemies having harder move trees was a thing as an ascension level instead of Spire 1. Maybe that'll be a thing that happens in early access or something like that. So you can have your low ascension runs where that happens or whatever. But like, yeah, when I'm talking about like being a player, playing at max difficulty, trying to win a lot, trying to think a lot about the game strategically and stuff like that, I'm going to tell you about how much fun that is. And that's not because other things aren't fun. It's because this is a thing that I really enjoy, and I want you to have the chance at least to see how I enjoy it and maybe enjoy it for yourself if it sounds fun to you. So that is where I am at after a week on the beta branch. And yeah, I'll probably check in with another video like this in a week when hopefully there are some new changes. Thanks for tuning in. Bye-bye.